I never imagined I'd face HEARTBREAK caring for a millionaire in a coma. Then his eyes opened. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. My heart raced, a wild drumbeat in my chest. I was in the sterile, cold hospital room, the scent of antiseptic choking me, when the alarms began to screech. Panic swirled like a storm around me. The silence shattered, and I felt my legs tremble. I saw the face of a man who had everything: money, power, dreams slumped motionless on the crisp white sheets. A mere shadow of who he had been just days before. Nathan Ellis. The name echoed in my mind. He was more than just a millionaire. He was a whirlwind of charm, laughter, and ambition. I was drawn to him, and not just because of his wealth. We shared fleeting moments of warmth that felt like stolen treasures, glimpses of what could have been. I had dared to hope, to dream of a life built on love and adventure. But now, here I was, gripping his cold hand, feeling the lifelessness seep into my bones. I remembered our last conversation, the excited plans we had made for the future: travel, laughter, and a house filled with joy. That was before the crash, before everything turned to darkness. I gathered my courage, leaning closer. I whispered to him, begging for a sign, something, anything. A flutter of his eyelids, a squeeze of my hand. The seconds ticked by, heavy and oppressive, as I waited for him to come back to me. Suddenly, his heart monitor blasted a relentless rhythm, and my breath hitched. The doctors pushed against the door, murmurs buzzing like angry bees. I felt their skepticism, their doubts pouring just as thick as the sterile air. I didn't care. I remembered his laugh, his fierce determination, and I knew he was still in there. Then came the moment that changed everything. When the world held its breath, the kind of unbearable silence that pressed on my chest like a 1,000-pound weight. Nathan's fingers twitched. My heart leapt. Tears spilled down my cheeks. I didn't dare breathe. His eyes, once dull and blank, flickered open, shocking blue, piercing through the haze of my despair, locking onto mine. All at once, the room spun. The doctor's frantic voices faded to the background, and there was only us. Questions raced through my mind. What did he remember? Would he be the same? Would he even want me? The weight of uncertainty pressed down. The world spiraled, and I didn't know if I should embrace joy or fear as I watched those blue depths flicker with recognition, confusion, and something else. Hey! Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon, and while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. I stood there, frozen in a moment that felt suspended in time. The haze of medical uncertainty surrounded us, but Nathan's blue eyes held a fierce glimmer as they met mine. I saw pain and confusion, but also recognition, a spark that ignited hope within me. I was afraid to reach out, afraid that a simple touch could break the fragile thread of connection we'd just forged. Nathan, I croaked, my voice scarcely a whisper. His lips parted, and I held my breath, wishing he would speak, that the words would tumble forth like sunlight breaking through a storm. But all that emerged was a raspy exhale, strained and heavy with unspoken thoughts. The doctors moved in, floodlights of activity piercing through my moment of clarity. Their voices wrapped around me like a fog, clinical and detached. I was just a bystander in my own heart, a mere spectator to the whirlwind of chaos that erupted around Nathan. I glanced at his face, wanting desperately to shield him from the invasive questions and the scrutinizing eyes of medical professionals that felt so foreign to our intimate world. Hours blurred into each other, each moment a heavy weight of worry perched on my chest. Time stretched painfully, and I found myself stepping out into the hallway to escape that suffocating room. I leaned against the cool, sterile wall, closing my eyes and blocking out the endless murmurs of the hospital. I couldn't shake the images of Nathan, the vibrant man full of life who danced through life with enthusiasm and daring. Would the man who woke up today still be the same charismatic soul I loved? Would he remember our shared dreams? Would he even want them given what he had endured? Just then, an elderly woman caught my eye as she shuffled down the corridor, an open book clutched against her chest. I recognized her as one of the regulars at the hospital, a comforting presence who read to patients in need of solace. "Are you okay, dear?" she asked softly, her voice a balm amidst the chaos. There was a kindness in her gaze that felt like a hug. Couldn't help but cry. "No, I'm not. I don't know if hell be the same. I'm so afraid." The woman nodded, her brow furrowed with understanding. "Hope can be a heavy burden too," she said gently. "Sometimes we have to carry it one small moment at a time." She placed her hand on my shoulder, and I felt the warmth seep through. It was unexpected and lovely, like a warm cup of tea on a cold day as gratitude welled up in me. I wiped my tears, feeling the weight of the woman's words settle in my heart. "Thank you," I said, "for reminding me to hold on to hope." She smiled, her eyes twinkling like stars. "You have to believe in the small victories. They're just as important as the grand ones." I returned to Nathan's room brimming with a flicker of optimism. I stood at his bedside and picked up his handcool, but just barely, warmth gradually returning. "I'm here," I said, feeling the tremors in my voice. "You have to fight, Nathan. Fight for us. Please." The heart monitor beeped, and I watched as those blue eyes slowly began to blink, their cerulean depths shifting with the effort it took. My breath caught once more as I searched them for recognition, for a sign of the fierce man I adored. But something unexpected happened. A shadow flickered across his features, something dark and complicated. He opened his mouth as if to speak, and I leaned forward, my heart racing. "What is it, Nathan? Please, tell me." That a whispered word escaped his lips. Unsteady and fragile, a name not mine, not ours, clattered against my heart like broken glass. "Ella." The world around me faded. A stab of confusion and betrayal coursed through my veins. Ella? Who was she? 1,000 questions filled the air, suffocating my breath, swamping the tentative threads of hope I'd just begun to weave. Driven by sheer emotion, I gripped his hand tighter, the urgency of the moment igniting a flame of desperation within me. I needed to know. I needed to understand where his heart truly lay before it slipped away again, like so many moments in life that we take for granted. Evening shadows began to stretch across the hospital room, softening the harsh lights that hung overhead like a constellation of distant stars. I could scarcely process Nathan's utterance, my heart hammering with each beat as I wrestled with the depth of my confusion. Who was Ella? And why had his first word resurfaced her name? I leaned closer, hoping against hope that this was just a glitch in the fabric of his thoughts, a fleeting memory that would quickly dissolve like mist in sunlight. Yet Nathan's eyes drifted away from mine, turning inward as if there lay answers in a world only he could see. Pain rippled through me. It settled heavily in my stomach like a stone lodged in the depths. "Ella," I whispered, each syllable feeling foreign and jagged on my tongue. The name tasted bitter like old medicine. The confusion morphed into a gnawing despair, and I fought the tears threatening to burst forth. Who was she? Was she someone from his past? A fleeting romance that lingered in his absence? My heart clenched at the thought, how could he leave me hanging on a thread while she loomed in the edges of his fractured mind? The machinery beeped steadily, its rhythmic sound filling the silence. I could hear it wailing my uncertainties back at me. "Ella. Ella. Ella," each echo magnifying the ache in my chest. "Nathan," I called, desperation edging my voice. "Can you hear me?" His gaze moved away from the invisible landscape of his memories and back to my waiting eyes. There it was again, the flicker of something familiar that felt like a dream just beyond my reach. I held on to that flicker because hope clung to threads like these, didn't it? But it was like catching smoke with my bare hands. Every time I thought I grasped it, it slipped away. After what felt like an eternity, Nathan's voice, fragile yet resilient, broke the stillness once more. "Who are you?" The question hung in the air like suspended dust, sharp and painful. I swallowed hard, my heart nearly shattering at the weight of it. Clara, your friend. The honesty softened my voice, but beneath it lay an undeniable tremor of hope that would dissolve if tampered with. You're my everything, Nathan. His brow knitted, confusion clouding his expression. I watched the understanding seep into the blue depths of his eyes and then flicker out just as quickly. I was lost in a labyrinth of memories and emotions, desperately wishing I could reach in and draw him back through the mist. Moments later, an impersonal beeping cut through our exchange, a reminder of the unyielding reality of our situation. I could feel the weight of every passing second press against my chest. Time felt both infinite and impossibly constrained. I wanted to scream for just a little patience, a little time to explain who we were, but instead, I found myself softening my grip in an effort not to force what was yet unformed. As I turned my gaze to the window, grief and anger clashed inside me fiercely. The sunset painted the sky in hues of orange and purple, but it only reminded me that nothing outside reflected the tumult in my heart. With tears pricking at the corners of my eyes, I looked back to Nathan, my pulse quickening as a new rush of determination surged within me. I won't give up on us, I vowed, my voice steadying. They'll be here. We'll fight through this. Promise. Just then, I felt a featherlight touch on my arm. I turned to find the old woman from earlier standing in the doorway, her presence an unexpected anchor amidst the tempest brewing within me. May I? She asked gently, her gaze resting on Nathan. I nodded, allowing her to join me at his bedside with a silent sense of relief. She reached out and rested her hand on his forehead, her soft touch infusing him with an aura of calm that belied the chaos of the room. Sweetheart, she murmured, her voice barely higher than a whisper. You're surrounded by love. Hang on to that. As she spoke, I felt the tendrils of hope wrap tighter around my heart, soothing the jagged edges of despair. With her presence, Nathan blinked, and for a moment he seemed almost peaceful, the tension on his face easing. But then, almost like a cruel twist in fate, Nathan's eyes flitted back to mine. I love you, Ella. He breathed again, his eyes searching for someone who wasn't there. A dagger lodged itself in my throat, sharp and unforgiving. I recoiled, the air around me thickening with unspoken heartache. How could I reach him if he grasped for someone so painfully out of reach? Could he even see me, or was I merely a shadow on the periphery of his fading memory? Panic spread through my body as I faced the increasing distance between us. I gripped his hand tighter, desperate for any sign of recognition. My insides twisted into a knot of despair as I realized I needed answers before this fight escalated into a greater stillness, a world where Nathan had chosen someone else entirely. The night stretched on, the hospital's fluorescent lights buzzing softly above us. A stillness enveloped the room, interrupted only by Nathan's irregular breathing and the rhythmic beep of the monitor. I adjusted myself in the chair, the metal frame cold beneath me, clinging to Nathan's hand as if my grip could pull him back from whatever void was consuming him. After a drawn-out lull, the old woman turned to me, her wizened face a map of years filled with stories I could only guess at. She possessed a wisdom that felt oddly comforting amidst the chaos of my emotions. You resemble someone he loved, she said gently, her voice a soothing balm against my panic. It's not unusual for the mind to wander back to those it holds dear when faced with darkness. Her words swirled around me, igniting both a flicker of hope and a pulse of despair within. Was I merely a facade of past affection? Was my very existence diminishing in the wake of a name I didn't know? Ella, I murmured, tasting the name once more. A ghostly echo of something I felt I had to overcome. The mere essence of it sent shards of ice stabbing through my heart. I just need a chance to show him, to remind him who I am, I whispered into the dim room, my own pleas bouncing back with cruel indifference. The old woman's hand continued to rest on Nathan's forehead, her thumb stroking through his hair, a gesture of comfort. Hope builds bridges we don't always see, she said softly. Trust that love can withstand the trials of memory. It waits even when we cannot. With those words, I felt a swell of determination rise once more. I couldn't surrender without a fight. Nathan was worth every ounce of heartache that washed over me. I will bring you back, Nathan. I whispered fiercely, my pulse pounding with conviction. I won't let you slip away from me. As if stirred by my words, Nathan's face shifted slightly, a frown flickering across his forehead. Clara? He croaked, his eyes still cloudy yet somehow searching. Panic bubbled in my chest. I leaned in closer, my breath hitching. Here was my chance. He remembered my voice. Yes, it's me. Triumph flickered in my heart, like light breaking through the relentless cloud cover. It's Clara, Nathan. Please don't close your eyes. Look at me. I'm right here. But then, like a shadow weaving through the light, his gaze wavered again. The familiar warmth in his eyes cooled, and the soft line of recognition washed away. I don't know. Where is Ella? He murmured again, the shattered pieces of his memories cascading like a surreal waterfall. The suffocating weight of dread bore down on me, and I struggled to contain my emotions before the old woman. Nathan, please, you don't have to search for her. I'm here, I am real. I felt feeble and heartbroken, crushed against the reality of his confusion and my own inadequacy. The old woman spoke softly, her voice like a bomb. Sometimes, our minds choose to protect us from the harshness of reality. Dear, maybe he'll find his way back when he's ready. But I needed him to comprehend now, to weave together the delicate strings of his emotions before they unraveled completely. And yet, the fear of losing what little connection we had paralyzed me. Wordlessly, I watched the flicker of life in his eyes dim once more as he tilted his head away from me, seemingly retreating into the depths of his mind. Overwhelmed, I retreated to the corner of the room, resting my back against the sterile wall. I felt utterly lost, grappling with the haunting shadows of his memories, vivid yet obscured, and the anger sparked inside me towards Ella for being such an invisible presence in our lives. How could she infiltrate the very core of Nathan's being, while I, here and present, could not break through? As tears slipped down my cheeks, a nurse entered the room with a weary smile, her presence a reminder that life trudged onwards. How's he doing? She asked gently, as if sensing the crackling tension permeating the air. Not good, I admitted, my voice trembling. He keeps calling for someone I don't know, and I feel like I'm losing him. She nodded, her eyes understanding, as she checked the machines surrounding Nathan. Memory is a tricky thing, she replied. Sometimes, it draws from the deepest wells of our past, and sometimes it brings forth shadows that haunt rather than comfort. Shadows? I echoed, the word sending a shiver through me. Yes, she said softly, rolling her chair closer. But just remember, the light will break through. Keep reminding him of the warmth of love, his love. It holds power beyond comprehension. Just as the nurse finished her sentence, a startling commotion erupted from the hallway. The sudden roar of angry voices grew louder, echoing through the sterile corridors. My heart raced. I turned to see a man bursting through the door, eyes wild and frantic. Without a word, he rushed past me, heading directly for Nathan's bedside, his face pale with urgency. Nathan! He cried, the name spilling from his lips like a desperate prayer, and a rush of recognition surged through me. Somehow, I knew that this man was Ella's name that had turned my world upside down, one who held the key to Nathan's fragments. As I stood frozen, the air thickening with emotions, uncertainty and fury flooded my veins. A potential confrontation loomed, shrouded in the thick fog of what I had yet to uncover. The threads of our lives tangled even deeper, and I held my breath, drowning in the imminent storm ahead. The man stood rigidly at Nathan's bedside, his hands gripping the edge of the blanket, desperation plastered across his features like a breaking dam. What happened? I was just with him. A raspy tone laced his voice, urgency sparking through every word. His frantic gaze shot from Nathan to me, and in that moment I felt the world around us shrink to a mere threaded delicate thread that bound us in an invisible web of shared pain and unsung histories. Who are you? I finally managed to ask, my heart drumming against my ribs. The nurse had discreetly backed away, sensing the rising tension, and I felt a wave of protectiveness surge within me. This was my fight. My love. I am Lucas, he breathed, although it felt more like an exhale of defeat. Nathan's close friend. He faltered, eyes darting back to my boyfriend, and I couldn't discern if he was looking for affirmation or forgiveness. I was supposed to meet him. We were planning to what? I pressed, my snarl barely contained beneath layers of grief and anxiety. You're the reason he's here, aren't you? Clara, that isn't it's not how it sounds. Lucas snapped, but the fury in his voice shimmered with jagged edges, fear grasping at his words. I could feel the energy crackle around us like an electric current, and relief mingled with disbelief. Then explain it to me, I shouted, too consumed by the gravity of the moment to wrestle with my own fear. Why does he keep calling for her? The name sat heavily on my tongue, sinister in its implications. Lucas swallowed hard, and the haunted expression in his eyes told me he was wrestling with demons of his own. Ella, she was his first love. They were together for years, but they parted ways bitterly. She moved to a different city, and Nathan, he was devastated. A heavy silence fell over us, laden with unspoken truths. I grappled with the weight of his revelation and the entwined lives it represented. So you knew him when he was whole? I choked on the words, aware of the jealousy slipping through my defenses. Yes. He paused, glancing at Nathan, who remained immobile, caught in the fragile grasp of unconsciousness. I thought he was finally over her, that he had moved on. But that night I wanted to surprise him. By luring him back? My incredulity was palpable. You think that's what he needs right now? Her ghost clawing its way back? Clara, I didn't want this. Lucas took a step closer, desperation creeping into his voice. I wanted to be there for him. He's like a brother to me. I didn't know he was dying. I spat, my breath catching. You didn't know he was fighting his past? He's not just a project, you know? Look, I didn't mean to undermine your place in his life, he said quietly, an edge of sincerity creeping in, even as I bristled at his words. But memories, they shimmer in and out of focus when someone's mind fractures. Maybe Ella is his lifeline. A wave of nausea rolled through me. When are you going to realize that you're not the one he needs? What about me? I'm right here. Suddenly Nathan stirred. The pained groan escaped his lips, and my instincts flared, lunging to his side. Nathan! My heart raced as I leaned closer, trying to anchor him in the present. It's me, Clara. Please remember. His eyelids fluttered, but as he drew a breath, and at that moment the line in his face, rigid and contorted, seemed to slip further away from me. Where am I? He rasped, a thread of confusion lacing his tone. Oh, stay with me. Look at me. I gripped his hand tighter, calling forth recollections, hoping my presence would spark recognition. But his gaze wandered, eyes searching for someone who wasn't there. Ella? He murmured, voice laced with yearning, the name reverberating through the still air like a death knell. Frustration consumed me. I shot a helpless look at Lucas, who stood beside me like a ghost of unresolved tension. This isn't how it's supposed to be, all twisted in the shadows of someone who's gone. Clara, listen, he began, but I couldn't bear to hear him. I was losing Nathan all over again, and despite Lucas' presence, despite his connection, I felt more alone than ever. Get out, I whispered hoarsely. It tumbled from my lips in a whisper, a plea masked as a demand. What? His surprise was genuine, but I felt the desperation pooled in my own heart, and I stood firm, brimming with resolve. Get out. You're just bringing up ghosts, and I won't let it ruin what I still have left. The tension snapped like a thread, and Lucas hesitated before taking a step back, bewildered. I didn't mean to invade. I don't care. Just go. The echo of my voice lingered long after he slipped from the room, and as the door clicked shut, I lost track of time. Clutching Nathan's hand, a transformation washed over me. Resentment mingled with exertion, and as I looked down at him, his features still soft yet so profoundly lost, I whispered through the tempest of chaos, I will bring you back, Nathan. I will reach you through every memory, even those that feel broken. But just as I spoke those words, those lingering threads of connection unraveling, I felt a sharp, cold sensations slicing through the air. I turned toward the door, feeling hollowed with uncertainty, and saw a note slipped beneath a delicate piece of paper. I wasn't prepared for the shock that surged through me as I unfolded the slip, revealing a single line scrawled in hurried, desperate handwriting. Clara, I'm sorry for everything. The truth about Nathan might change everything you know. My breath caught in my throat, dread pooling in the pit of my stomach as the weight of what lay ahead settled upon me like a storm, relentless and unyielding. As the silence enveloped me, my heart raced. The tremor in my hand worsened as I clutched the note, the implications of its words wrapping tightly around my mind. The truth about Nathan might change everything you know. My breath quickened, and I felt the all-consuming weight of worry and confusion pour over me. What truth? My instincts screamed warnings I couldn't decipher. But somewhere beneath the turmoil, curiosity flickered like a tiny flame, desperate for oxygen. I glanced back at Nathan, whose eyes remained shut, his chest rising and falling with the rhythm of an unseen lullaby. While my world collapsed around me, I sank into the chair beside his bed, heart racing, trying to grasp the enormity of the situation. Lucas had vanished, leaving me with nothing but silence and that cryptic note that felt like the final thread in the tapestry of Nathan's life, one that could unravel everything I thought I knew. The minutes stretched into what felt like hours, and though I concentrated on Nathan, willing him to wake up and reassure me that everything was okay, my mind strayed back to that note. Was it possible there were truths I hadn't uncovered? Stories that twined around Nathan's past but had never reached my ears? The fluorescent lights flickered overhead as the hospital seemed to breathe with life even amidst its bleak surroundings. Echoes of hurried footsteps and distant conversations played like a haunting symphony, reminding me how isolated I truly felt. Love and despair intertwined within me, and I frantically searched the corners of my mind for answers, desperate to free Nathan from the clutches of this darkness surrounding him. Suddenly, the door creaked open, and a nurse entered, an air of unfamiliarity threading through her professional demeanor. She caught my eye and sighed, her expression softening when she noted my weary face. "How's he doing?" she asked gently, glancing at Nathan before back at me. "He's still unresponsive," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. "But I'm holding on to hope, I can see that." She smiled, an expression tinged with compassion. "You've been a steady presence. Surely, that's not enough," I murmured, unable to shake off the heavy weight resting on my heart. "That it is, Clara?" She reassured me, her eyes glistening with understanding. "Sometimes, being here, being present, is all he needs." As she tended to Nathan, I could feel the small flickers of warmth begin to pierce the cold surrounding us. This nurse, with her genuine care, reminded me that there were still pockets of kindness amidst chaos. And for a moment, I allowed that warmth to seep into my bones. "Do you think?" The words slipped from my lips before I could catch them. "Do you think he can hear me?" The nurse paused, her hands stilling as she regarded me thoughtfully. "You'd be surprised how much awareness those in comas can experience. Your voice, your loveit can reach them in ways we can't understand. Just keep talking to him. Share the memories. Remind him of why he needs to fight." "Why he needs to fight," I whispered the phrase like a prayer, tightly wrapping the hope around my heart. Then, just as suddenly as she had arrived, the nurse finished her tasks. She offered me a supportive smile before slipping out again, leaving me with only Nathan and the memories swirling like lost whispers in my mind. I took a deep breath, holding his hand as I settled into the rhythm of my thoughts. "Nathan, do you remember the rain?" I began, feeling slightly foolish but determined. "That time when we got caught in a downpour at the farmer's market. We laughed so hard, soaked to the bone, and you declared we'd have to live with the chickens if we couldn't get a ride home. You were so sweet, trying to make me smile through it all." The memory danced through my mind, warming me against the uncertainty. And suddenly, I realized that despite how desperate my situation felt, I could still connect with Nathan through those shared moments. "Or the first time you showed me that hideaway by the river." I continued, momentum building as I poured memories into the room like sunlight. "You thought it was a secret, but I could tell even then how much it meant to you. We laid there for hours talking about our dreams. I lost track of time, maybe it was minutes, maybe it was hours. My voice became a river flowing into Nathan's stillness. And in that flow, I couldn't help but notice something shift in the air. A sudden chill swept through the room as the door creaked open again. This time, it was Lucas. The tension from before hung like a dark cloud, but the weight in his eyes was different than I remembered, determined but fragile. "Clara, I came back because I think I can help," he said softly. That I held my breath, heart pounding fiercely as the edges of a new, ominous storm approached. "Help? How could you possibly help?" I spat, each syllable heavy with suspicion, my instinct to guard my heart prevailing. Still, he stepped closer, leaving the door ajar behind him, and I caught the flash of something in his eyes. "I need you to understand Nathan's past, Clara. There's more to this than you know." I could feel my pulse quicken, curiosity mingled with dread. Would the truth he brought change everything I felt for Nathan? Was he offering the hand I needed, or another blow to my already reeling heart? Before I could process my swirling emotions, Lucas took a deep breath, as if preparing to unveil something monumental. "But you might not like what I have to say," he warned, his voice raw and trembling with the weight of unshared secrets. Thunder rumbled in the distance, and in that moment, the gravity of what was about to be revealed hung in the air, thick and palpable, promising that heartbreak awaited, ready to surge once more. The air felt electric, charged with a tension neither Lucas nor I could ignore. As he steadied his breath, I searched his face for signs of reassurance, for the familiar spark of loyalty I once knew him for, but all I found was apprehension shadowed by urgency. The light from the hallway illuminated the sharp contours of his jaw, contrasting with the emotional storm brewing in his eyes. "What do you mean, Lucas?" I managed to whisper, the fear of what I might uncover pooling like ice in my stomach. "What could you possibly know that I don't?" He glanced back at Nathan, lying still, and a wave of vulnerability seemed to wash over him. "Nathan, he has a complicated history. I've been trying to protect you from it, but now it's different." "Protect me from what?" My voice trembled, each word laced with disbelief. "From the truth? You think shielding me will help? It's not just me, Clara. It's Nathan too. His past is tangled with things you might find hard to bear," he urged, looking down as if bracing himself against shame. "He'd never want you to find out like this." "This is ridiculous," I exclaimed, my heart racing with indignation. "I deserve to know. I love him. Whatever it is, it can't possibly change that." Lucas stepped closer, lowering his voice, urgency spilling from every syllable. You might hate him for it." His words landed like stones, causing the flickering light of hope inside me to sputter like a candle caught in a gust of wind. "Then let me decide," I shot back defiantly, the fire of anger slowly eclipsing my fear. "Tell me what you know." "Fine," he exhaled, the resignation in his shoulders heavy. "But you're not going to like it." Nathan sank into this life-wealth privilege that came with price tags that stretch far beyond dollar signs. "There are secrets, Clara. People who think they own him, who want to claim him back for their own reasons." I couldn't move, the ground beneath me slipping away as I was propelled into a past I never dreamed would weave itself into our present. "What are you talking about? Owners? Who are they?" "Nathan's family isn't just wealthy. They're connected in ways you can't even imagine. I found out that when he tried to break free, when he chose a path for himself, everything shifted. He became a target. They need control, Clara. They would do anything to keep him tied to them, to keep their image intact." Each word felt like a blow to my heart, stripping away the idealized vision I had of Nathan, the man I loved who was supposed to be free, unencumbered. But he was happy, living life on his terms. I shot back, clenching Nathan's hand tightly, as if trying to pull him from the very consequences Lucas painted. Lucas shook his head, his face etched with regret. "Not everyone sees happiness as freedom, Clara. His family never accepted him being with someone who wasn't part of their world, someone who mattered in ways beyond their control." A lump formed in my throat as I processed his grim revelations. The weight of their expectations hung over us like a dark cloud, but more troubling was the thought of Nathan bearing that burden alone. The picture of the life we shared at the river, where he bared his soul, felt tainted in an instant. What are you saying? Are you saying he chose this for himself? I asked, my voice wobbly as anger twisted within me, threatening to choke out the remnants of hope that clung to my heart. That he walked away from me? From us? I'm saying he was pushed. Lucas' tone softened, and he reached for my shoulder but stopped short, realizing the chasm between us had widened into an abyss. Everything in him wanted to protect you. He wouldn't let you wade through the darkness he's been stuck in, but not knowing it's tearing you apart. I see that. I recoiled, pulling away from his touch as sorrow overpowered me. The room seemed to constrict around me, squeezing the air from my lungs. So what can we do? I barely managed to utter, feeling as if I were standing at the edge of a cliff, peering into an uncertain void. What can I do? Lucas hesitated, wrestling with either revealing more or holding back for my sake. Caught a flicker of turmoil in his eyes, like he was sharing in the weight of my grief. Knowing his own ties to Nathan were equally tangled, that I think he began, the hesitance drenching his words. If you're willing, there are people who can help you get to Nathan's family. You might be able to confront them, understand everything he ran from. But I need you to promise me. He paused, looking deeper into my eyes, searching for something I didn't quite understand. Promise me you'll be ready for whatever comes. Because the truth has a way of changing everything. Whatever it takes, I murmured, an unexpected surge of determination clawing at my heart. He'll do it. With a nod, Lucas extracted a folded piece of paper from his back pocket. This has the contact information for a lawyer I've spoken to. He knows about Nathan, about his family. You'll need everything you can possibly gather. The moment was heavy with new possibilities, but underneath it all, an ominous residue lingered. As I reached for the paper, my fingers trembled not just with resolve but with fear of what was to come. I tucked the paper safely in my pocket, aware that this could be the catalyst for storms I hadn't yet weathered. Just promise me one thing, I said, my eyes locking onto his. You'll be here. I can't carry this alone. Always, Lucas replied, his voice like a vow, though a shadow of regret flickered across his face. Lightning cracked in the distance, illuminating the gloom, and I knew in that moment that I was on the precipice of a journey that would take me to the very depths of Nathan's truth and perhaps beyond the point of return. In my heart, uncertainty brewed, the promise of love battling against fear. With Nathan's future entwined in the revelations ahead, the shadow of heartbreak loomed larger than ever. The hospital room felt suffocating, a sterile space painted in dull shades of blue and white that clashed violently with the chaos inside me. I stood at Nathan's bedside, the paper Lucas had given me pressing against my side like an anchor in this uncertainty. I grasped his hand tightly, the warmth of his skin clashing with the chill of the truth that had just unraveled. It felt wrong. The vibrations of what I'd learned buzzed in my ears, while I tried desperately to summon the strength to believe in our love against the backdrop of his secrets. I chose to believe that those moments by the river had meant more than the burdens he carried. I had to believe, but what if it was all in vain? What if the shadows of his past were too heavy, too intrusive? Come back to me, Nathan, I whispered, my voice trembling, the words barely escaping my throat. Please fight for us. Fight for this love. He remained still, the rhythmic beeping of the machines a stark reminder of his fragility. I turned my gaze to the window, watching storm clouds gather, mirroring my tumultuous thoughts. Each rumble of thunder seemed to resonate within me, a chaotic symphony of despair and hope. As the rain began to pour, drumming against the windows, I thought of my next steps. The lawyer Lucas mentioned could offer answers, but answers could also unravel the carefully woven fabric of my heart. Confronting Nathan's family, it felt like standing at the edge of a cliff, knowing the fall could be disastrous. Hours bled into an uncomfortable silence, deepening the shadows in my mind. I sat in the chair beside Nathan's bed, the weight of my decision pressing down like a lead blanket. Just as doubt began to swallow my resolve, a gentle knock at the door drew my attention. A nurse entered, her presence warm and calming amidst the turbulence. "How's he doing?" she asked softly, her eyes flicking between Nathan and me with a gentle understanding. I forced a smile that felt more like a mask than a gesture of reassurance. Better, I hope. I wish I could wake him. She nodded and moved closer to the bedside, adjusting the drip with practiced efficiency. It's a waiting game right now, but I've seen miracles happen. Sometimes, love is powerful enough to break through. Love, I echoed, fists tightening over the paper tucked into my pocket. It feels so fragile, like glass on the brink of shattering. You'd be surprised, she replied, offering a reassuring smile that felt genuine. Her compassion a soft light in the darkness. Just being here matters. It means everything. A shiver of warmth coursed through me, something I hadn't known I needed. Thank you, I whispered, and she only nodded, leaving me with a fragment of hope. Then the moment came that shifted everything. The room crackled with an unexplained energy, the air thickening. As I turned back to Nathan, something shifted in his expression, the twitch of his fingers, the flutter of his eyelids. My heart raced, hope igniting once again, but uncertainty clawed at me. Could it be? Nathan, I whispered urgently, leaning closer, cradling his hand as if it might coax him back. The machines around him began to beep erratically, and my pulse quickened. Can you hear me? His eyelids fluttered open, revealing those hazel eyes I knew so well, but they glimmered with a confusion that sent a jolt of panic through me. Clara? He rasped, his voice a hoarse whisper, laced with thick uncertainty. Yes, I'm here. I'm right here, I gasped, tears pooling in my eyes. The sound of his voice felt like a miracle. Even as shadowy clouds gathered in the corners of my mind, the weight of the truth lurking just beneath the surface. His brow furrowed, as if struggling to piece together fragments of forgotten thoughts. Where am I? The question gripped my heart. Would he remember everything? The life we built, the dreams we shared, or would this moment of awakening tear our worlds apart? You were in an accident, I stammered, the weight of my heart pressing against the words. You've been in a coma, but you're waking up. You're with me, Nathan. A flicker of recognition sparked in his eyes, but it was quickly swallowed by something darker. Clara, what happened? As the questions tumbled forth, I felt the reality of our situation crash around me. The love that had been my sanctuary suddenly felt burdened by what loomed ahead. Lucas, he muttered weakly, like an echo from a dream. I remember Lucas was Shu, I said, pressing a finger to his lips. You need to rest. It'll explain everything. Just focus on me. His breath quickened, his gaze intent on mine as if searching for reassurance. But the shadow of his family loomed large, a precipice I was yet to face. Clara, was I trying to escape? And even in that moment of vulnerability, the universe conspired to deepen the chasm between us. The weight of the revelations I held began to suffocate me, and I knew I had a choice to make. Love or the truth? With Nathan's gaze locked onto mine, a mixture of fear and resolve swirling in the depths of his hazel eyes. My heart splintered at the thought of the truth that could change everything. The storm outside howled relentlessly, and I was left teetering on the edge of all-consuming transformation, grasping for my love in a world eager to pull us apart. Clara, Nathan whispered, the raw pleading in his voice igniting the air like sparks. Tell me. And as I fought the rising tide of my own fears, I knew I had to find the words, but I couldn't promise they would heal him or scatter the shadows. The tension in the room was palpable, as if the very walls held their breath, waiting for the next words to spill forth. Nathan's eyes bore into mine, filled with questions I could scarcely bear to answer. The shroud of secrets hovered, thick and suffocating, and my heart raced at the weight of his past colliding with our present. Clara, please, he urged again, his voice strained but insistent. What were you trying to tell me before everything? I opened my mouth, ready to weave a tapestry of reassurance, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, what spilled forth was hesitation. Every fiber of my being wrestled between the comforts of silence and the truths begging to be set free. The truth could shatter his fragile state, and the thought of it was unbearably heavy. I wish I started, my voice trembling. I wish I could promise that everything is all right, that you didn't lose yourself while you were away. But Nathan, There's so much I need to tell you before I could finish. The door swung open. Startled, the two of us locked eyes momentarily before my gaze shifted to the figure who had intruded upon our cocoon of intimacy. It was Nathan's mother. Her expression was an amalgam of worry and a fragile kind of anger, flickering as she stepped into the room. "Nathan," she gasped, rushing to his side. Her hands shook, and I could see tears threatening to spill down her cheeks. For a moment, the world shrank to the confines of the hospital room, leaving only Nathan, his mother, and me suspended in a web of silent anguish. I could feel the chasm between us expand with every second that passed. As she drew closer to Nathan, I felt a twinge of guilt. She had every right to be by his side, yet part of me yearned to reclaim my space, to have him back me, Nathan, not just her son. "Mom?" Nathan's voice wobbled, the tremors of recognition mixing with confusion. "Oh, sweetie. Thank God." She grasped his hand, tears spilling freely as she pressed her forehead to his. I thought I'd lost you." Watching their tender reunion, a swirl of emotions gripped me. This was a moment of joy, yet it felt like a signal to retreat. I instinctively stepped away, but even in my yearning to honor the bond they shared, a gnawing sensation gripped my gut. In that moment, I felt like a trespasser, a shadow in their light. I recalled Nathan's words. What did I do? The questions still hung in the air between us, unanswered and sharp, jagged reminders of the storm we were all circling. She glanced at me, her expression a mix of surprise and uncertainty, quickly retuning to Nathan. "You were in an accident. You had us all so scared." Her voice trembled, and as she spoke, the reality of the situation settled upon me like a heavy blanket. I took a deep breath, my heart a chaotic rhythm in my chest. "Nathan," I finally said in a quiet voice, drawing his attention back towards me. "You need to focus on getting better." His eyes shifted again, conveying a myriad of emotions I couldn't decipher. "But I can't shake the feeling there's something important I need to remember." "Something about Lucas?" His mother interrupted sharply, her voice thick with warning. "You don't need to focus on that now. You just need to rest." Silence enveloped us, heavy with the tension of unspoken words. I knew Lucas had cast a stormy shadow over our lives before Nathan's ordeal, and the unresolved history hung closer than ever. My gut twisted at the realization: how could I preserve our love while also shattering the walls of secrecy surrounding his past? "We'll talk about everything," I promised Nathan softly, trying to sound more confident than I felt. "But first, just rest and recover." "Nathan, sweetie," his mother continued, her voice a soft lull, "let us take care of you now. You'll be all right." I involuntarily stiffened at the word "us." Because even in that moment all tenderness and concern me heart shattered slightly at the realization of what I was losing. I sensed a shift, a barricade rising between Nathan and me, shielded by family and unspoken strife. The minutes turned to hours as I sat there quietly, my heart a heavy stone in my chest while Nathan dozed anxiously, chased by the remnants of his fragmented memories. A nurse entered every so often, checking monitors and updating us, but the air was thick with an unshakable sorrow. Just then, Nathan stirred again, his brow furrowed. I instinctively moved closer, urging him to focus on me. "I'm here," I whispered softly. "Clara." He breathed, as though my presence was a lifeline holding him to the surface. Then suddenly, he jolted, his expression transforming into fear. "Lucas," he said, something important. In the park, he murmured, almost to himself, "I have to Clara. Do you think?" The uncovering weight crashed over me, heavy and relentless. The revelation beckoned to present itself, and a truth lingered in the offing. Hope flickered, faltered against a tide of panic. I leaned closer, clinging to his every word, but I sensed the abyss yawning before us. "Nathan," I whispered, "maybe we should." The door swung open again, and another familiar face appeared, a tall silhouette, adorned in an expensive suit. My breath caught in my throat at the sight of Nathan's estranged father, a man whose presence loomed larger than life and carried an unseen weight. "Son," he said in a voice so chilling, it sent shivers down my spine. "We need to talk." The familiar sting of dread nestled in my chest, ominous and stormy. The storm clouds outside morphed into something darker than the rain pouring down on the windows. A tempest was brewing, not just in the skies above, but in the fragile realm I had fought so hard to protect. As Nathan looked at me, confusion and mounting dread painting his features, I realized with stark clarity I was on the precipice of choice, teetering between love and truth, as the lightning struck outside, illuminating the storm we were all about to face head-on. The tension in the air hung thick with unspoken truths, a maelstrom of emotions swirling just beneath the surface. Nathan's father's entry into the hospital room sent shockwaves through mess harp and biting, like shards of ice piercing through the warmth we had fostered. As I looked at Nathan, I saw the flicker of confusion cross his features, a shadow of the man I loved. It was clear he wasn't just caught between two worlds. He was standing at the edge of familial ties, a history that loomed like an insurmountable wall, waiting to collapse. "Dad, please," Nathan murmured, trying to piece together the fragments of his memories. "Not now." I could hear the strain in his voice, the desperation laced with fear as he glanced between us, his eyes pleading for understanding, but the gravity of his father's presence answered with a chilling certainty. "We need to discuss how you've jeopardized everything," he began, his tone sharp and commanding, leaving no room for softness. I felt fury rising within me, injustices of Nathan's world pouring back like dark ink, overshadowing the hope I had clung to. Jeopardized? He almost lost his life. I snapped, stepping forward, needing to shield Nathan from the weight of a man who seemed to know only the rigid architecture of power and control. "You don't get to waltz in here and make this about your legacy." The older man turned to me, surprise momentarily cleaving through his stern demeanor. "And who are you?" he demanded, his voice dripping with disdain. "Some girlfriend? You think understanding love changes anything?" I felt Nathan tense at the term girlfriend, as if a single word could encapsulate the depth of our bond. But it was not just my anger I had to contain. It was Nathan's faltering heart that mirrored my own turmoil. "I'm Clara, and I love him," I asserted, every syllable gaining strength, channeling my determination into the challenge against the man whose shadow darkened our lives. "He deserves a chance to wake up free from the chains your family has wrapped around him. Love doesn't shield him from consequences," his father replied coldly. "He made his choices. He chose to go against the very foundation that has given him everything." In that moment, something in me snapped. Every ounce of confusion I had ever faced swelled into clarity. Tenderness tangled with sharp edges, a resolve that would not waver against the winds of family legacy. He deserves to choose for himself, not be shackled by a name that means nothing if he can't be happy. Nathan's breathing quickened, and the tension in the room became palpable. I turned back to him, urgency twisting in my gut. "Please," Nathan, his gaze shifted back toward me, a deep yearning flooding the depths of his eyes. "Clara," before he could complete his thought, his father interjected, raising a hand. "You're still not ready to face the truth, Nathan. You still think you can have both worlds." The mention of truth felt like a dagger lodged in my heart. A dark realization crept upon me. The truth Nathan needed could come with the price of betrayal, the revelation that not only affected him but would pierce right to the core of our love. Emotions clashed, and confusion danced dangerously close to despair. "Nathan, don't let him poison this moment with guilt," I urged. "Whatever it is, we'll face it together. You don't need to hide from me or your past. I believe in you." That seemed to steal the air from Nathan's lungs, forcing him to wrestle with the tempest inside. "But what if my past is?" he trailed off, and I could feel his resistance pushing against me. "Your past doesn't have to define you," I pleaded, stepping closer, my hands gripping his. "You came back for a reason. I won't let them take you from me again." His father's features twisted with disdain as he stepped forward, casting a shadow over the two of us. "This isn't a fairy tale, Clara. There are forces at play you'd never understand," he said dismissively before quieting at the sight of Nathan's hand in mine. The flickering connection of our hearts defying the darkness he tried to impose that I end that fragile moment. Something shifted within Nathan. A flicker of recognition sparked within his hazel eyes, and I could see the tangled threads of acceptance wrapping around the jagged edges of his past. "I need to remember," he whispered, his voice trembling, vulnerable, yet resilient, and oh, came his father's contemptuous reply. "You'll never be free if you succumb to those memories. You need to trust me to guide you back. I will protect you from your mistakes." "Nathan," I urged again, focusing solely on him. "What you shared with me by the river, that was real. We can build something meaningful if you let it show through." His gaze bore into mine, and the world outside felt like a whirlwind as hope burst fiercely between us. "Let's fight this together," I said, more resolute than ever. "You're not an obligation, your love, a bright spark in a dark world." But cradled in that moment, a rare fragment of clarity hovered. Nathan's past was a ghost that wouldn't vanish without a fight. And in that truth, I felt the weight of an uncharted journey waiting just beyond. "You need to confront whatever lies ahead," I pressed, still brimming with love and determination. "We'll meet it as partners. I won't let your past condemn our future." "Then I suppose you're asking for a lot, aren't you?" his father muttered, dismissively. "Enough," Nathan roared, surprising us both. "I'm tired of running." He turned his attention to me, eyes now clearer and stronger, iron of resolve glaring back. "I want the truth about Ella, about everything. Nothing will deter me from understanding who I am." The sheer force behind his order was a powerful wave, crashing against the walls his father had built. In an instant, I believed we could weather whatever storm lay ahead, with hearts interwoven, conjunctions of courage, and light illuminating even the darkest depths. The old man's expression morphed, shock traveling like a ripple across his face. "You cannot be prepared for what lies ahead. You think you understand loyalty?" he hissed, the hostile air vibrating with something deeper. "Maybe it is time you realize the sacrifices that come with wealth. I know that love does not count the cost." Nathan shot back, voice unwavering, and as that realization proved powerful, his mother's lingering shadow seemed to flicker back, flaring momentarily in panic but slowly brightening in a way that hinted at acceptance. "They'll find my own way, Dad," Nathan declared, summoning every shred of strength he possessed to rise above the turbulent weight of his family. "I will reach for love despite your suffocating grip." In that moment, the fragile strings of devotion entwined around our hearts illuminated the path toward possibility. As Nathan faced the stark glances of his family, a moment of collective silence hung over USA concert of uncertainty and hope threading through the tension. And then Nathan turned to me fully, a transformative spark igniting within him. "Clara, I want to know everything. I want to embrace everything. No more running." His words washed over me like spring rain, a refreshment from the turmoil engulfing our lives. For the first time, I felt the genuine essence of who he was, unmarred by lingering doubts. I nodded, my heart swelling with renewed hope, ready to face whatever lay ahead, even if it meant diving into the depths of the painful past together. As the room pulsed with untold truths, mixed emotions gave rise to courage, and I knew with unshakable conviction that love would be our guide. The storm may have gathered outside, the thunder rumbling ominously at our backs, but we were not alone. We would face the truth together. And as Nathan slowly returned from the precipice, there was a clarity spiraling in my heart. I reached for him, clasping his hand tightly in mine, feeling the warmth of connection drive away the shadows we both feared. I knew in that moment I would follow that light, traversing every challenge to ensure that our hearts would rise above the storm. "Whatever comes next," I whispered, infusing my words with the raw, heartfelt connection we shared, "they'll be right here fighting with you." With those words echoing in the confines of our hearts, I watched as Nathan's expression shifted. The knowing bloom of acceptance surfaced, eclipsing the fear that lingered before. Even as thunder echoed outside, there was an undeniable light gathering within, illuminating the path ahead. And then came the thunderous finale to this chapter of our Lavisa promise, forged not only from love but from the togetherness built amid storms. "Love," I vowed, my voice a low tremor beneath the mounting pressure around us, "is worth every battle fought." And just like that, a heartfelt tide surged within me, knowing that beneath the storm it would find its way towards a new dawn. As we stepped boldly into the unknown, entwining our hearts and histories through every truth discovered.